Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the first regular monthly meeting of the Mayor and Council being held in Borough Hall Tuesday, October 11th, starting at actually 6:30. Missy, could you please read the roll?
Mayor Nunziato.
Here.
Councilman Goldtag.
Here.
Councilman Leahy. Councilman Coakley.
Here.
Councilman McGowan.
Present.
Councilman Big Robertson. Councilman Guzman.
Here.
Thank you. If you're willing and able, could you please stand for the salute to the flag? Thank you. Missy, could you please read the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act?
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, notice of this meeting was submitted to the Record, Herald News, and filed with the Borough Clerk on December 13th and 30th, 2021, and is posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Hall.
Thank you, Missy. Tonight, we're going to forego the Borough Engineers Report. Everybody has a copy of it. We have no presentations this evening. We'll move to the review of the changes to the agenda. Missy?
Yes, on page 2, under police consent, we'll be adding item C, resolution 199 for additional raffle licenses. On page 4, under public works, we'll be adding item A to accept the resignation of Matthew Bateau, effective October 21, 2022. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Missy. Any other changes to the agenda from the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call? Or may I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guzman. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldtag?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We're now going to open it up for the hearing of citizens. Please step to the mic, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, please. Anyone wishing to speak?
Had to make sure it was on. Bonnie Corcoran, 390 Montrose Avenue. 2 items. I would first like to know the website, is it handled solely by the public information officer, or is there other people involved in our website? Councilman Goldsack knows this, but a friend of mine was trying to find the sidewalk form, couldn't find it, had to call building department, looked everywhere, but DPW. Somewhere isn't it? It's under DPW. Really should be under resident services, because that's service to the residents. Secondly, our taxes came in today. I'm glad we finally finalized our budget and got the actual tax bills out. Only 2 months left of the year. I think our tax assessor and our tax people that are trying to work to get the assessments up to snuff, because there's a lot of people out there that are not properly assessed, are doing a really good job. I've gone in there a couple of times, and there's stacks up to here of files that they're going through. My opinion, we were supposed to have a revalve back in 2018. That is 4 years ago. The last one was done in 2006. I know for a fact that there's a lot of people out there that keep their permits open so they don't have to get reassessed. And not everybody is getting caught. There are a lot of people out there not paying their fair share. And it really stinks for the people that are paying their fair share, that other people are getting away with it. So I really hope that a revalve is in the works, because our tax people are going crazy trying to track down all these homes that have had things done. And there are people that have done stuff without even telling the building department. But it's quite noticeable when you drive by their house. So, and if I could just have that answer about the website and who fully controls it. Is it just one person? Is it multiple people? I'm under the impression it's one person, but it might be multiples. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Hi, Cheryl.
Cheryl Walsh Rapetti, 416 Lincoln Avenue. I just have two comments. I know you questioned it a few months ago when Brian Intandola was here about the traffic light on Erie and Jackson. It's very dark out since it's getting earlier, and is there any way we could put those flashing lights or something, because it's very dark there? I'm afraid someone's going to get hit. I know we're working on a traffic light, but I know it's a county road too, but if we can work something out with them. And number two is, I live on Lincoln going on to Route 3. It's like a speed zone. I mean, we have young kids there. Is there any way we could do speed bumps, Chief, or something like that? Because they just zoom down. I mean, I have young kids, I have a little one, and I know there's younger people on our block, so that's it. That's all I want.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Good evening, everybody. Adam Zora, 94 Vreeland Avenue. The approval of tonight's redevelopment ordinance, acknowledging that developers' inability to secure insufficient financing, or sufficient financing, as directly contradicts the administration's repeated remarks actually, and assurances that they'd be able to secure full financing. Now, the long-term tax exemption and the annual service charge promoted in the ordinance marks the sixth friends and family subsidy being offered to the developers by this administration in the last 15 months. As we all know, subsidy is defined as the use of public money to promote private enterprise. But I think you all owe us an obligation to explain, number one, how long the taxpayers will be burdened with this so-called tax exemption, and secondly, how the annual service charge would rank as a percentage of the normal property taxes that would be due on an annual basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Let me get my timer first. Make sure I don't get
Your
shortchanged.
time started.
Great. I know you don't want to listen, but I question.
Can you please state your name and address?
Okay, sure. Sorry. David Labruno, 423 Stuyvesant Avenue. I question the meeting tonight. You know, over the last several years, I've advocated for a specifying considerations and documents that will be relied on by this governing body to make decisions concerning tax abatements. Unfortunately, you guys haven't decided to do that. However, I again call on the borough to implement and pass such an ordinance, which is recommended by the Murphy administration. As Governor Murphy and his administration have recommended, local officials should understand the level of local tax and operational subsidy being provided to a project so as to inform the balancing of priorities during consideration of each proposal. Again, unfortunately, you guys haven't decided to follow this good government things. Also, there was no form of the agreement attached to the agenda. And on my visit to the council, to the chambers or downstairs to the clerk's office today, they tell me that document doesn't exist. So I'm not sure how you're voting on anything if we don't have anything to look at. Isn't the whole idea of having a transparent process to allow the public to have access and understand and make reasonable request of their governing body about what they're considering and what they're voting on? And if we don't even know that, I question how you're able to introduce an ordinance on first read and then pass it in the future when we don't even know what's going on yet we'll get a notice 3 days before a meeting, and then what? And then it's all over. Maybe you could ask your attorney when I'm done. Beyond that, concerning tonight's ordinance related to the tax abatement, as I said, there's no details, either of the application that was filed, the mayor's letter or recommendation for approval, any form of the financial agreement, not accessible to the public. Whereas, if you would read the ordinance, it lists a whole bunch of whereas. Whereas this document was submitted, whereas the mayor reviewed it, whereas the mayor forwarded it to the council for their consideration. And then in there, that the council finds relative to the benefits that it justifies this passage of this ordinance. So I'm not sure exactly what we're doing here tonight when we don't have anything, nothing presented to the public, no justification, no financial details, no terms of the agreement. It seems blatantly wrong to me. Lack of transparency. We're not even getting the process, the minimal process. Never mind never getting an answer about any considerations or any answer about financials. I'll quote from the only person on the dais who spoke at the council meeting of March 14th, 2022, in relation to the approval of the tax abatement for Parker 2. We're not selling out our town. We're not giving anything up. We're going to fight for every inch that we take. We also have to be cognizant of the fact that Rutherford either grows or dies. That's just the world. You know what? We have to give a little to get a lot. And I think that we are using all our resources in the most proper way we see fit. And I think this town has benefited from it. I know I have. I know my family has. And I hope everyone else feels the same. I know you don't. I can see some of that. But we are operating in the best interest of the town. And so that's all I got. I would like more. Sorry. I'll quote something also from the newspaper, NJ.com. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Sayreville as you go over the Driscoll Bridge, where there used to be a movie theater that's been abandoned for a long time, now under redevelopment. They have a mayor who's telling their council she was exceptionally concerned about an apparent frequency of pilot agreements in the area, a concern also raised by the residents. Kirkpatrick said she would be mindful of the issue. Here's the quotes. "We can't afford to sell out our community. We can't afford to hand over
You're
large..."
at 5 minutes, but I'll let you finish.
Thanks. "We can't afford to hand over large amounts of cash to developers where projects might not be as dire or in jeopardy or fiscally not reasonable. And we need to get better at doing that. We need to hold all these people that are on our committees accountable for those decisions, and we need to question them." I agree with the mayor of Sayreville. I would hope someone up here is at least curious about what the terms might be. Ms. Begg
I
isn't.
let you finish your,
When I asked Ms. Begg
I
over the
understand.
weekend, she
I
had no
did let you
idea.
finish.
All right, fantastic. Maybe we could change the rules sometime. There's not many people who want to ask something. It seems like a very minimal amount of ask to have several minutes more than 5. But
well, technically,
that's me.
Sir, technically the rule is by law 3. We have it at 5, so thank you for your comment.
Thanks for your graciousness.
Anybody else from the public?
Kevin Porro, 7 Chestnut Street. I want to first mention, I agree with Bonnie. The reevaluation is well overdue. I know I've spoken to some of the council members over the last 3, 4, 5 years when I occasionally show up, that I felt that reevaluation was very important. In addition, one thing I've started noticing in going around town is a lot of these houses that have been rehabilitated and flipped, the amount of concrete that goes around their yard or in their backyards, there used to be, and I didn't research it, if it still exists, but there used to be a percentage of how much ground surface had to be based on those
Impervious
house.
surface, yes.
Yeah. So I would have a concern that that's not being followed. In addition, there's houses that pave the backyard for driveways, two on Union Avenue on the corners. So when the town is following up on building permits, I'd like them to consider just paying attention to the amount of ground cover, because I'm guessing that they haven't pulled permits, and that's how they're just, and the houses are now turning over, and if the new buyer didn't know that that didn't comply when they bought the house, I don't know what the town can do at that point, but that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open up for any council comments. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Bonnie, to your question about the website, I'll let Bob speak on the mechanics of the actual putting it together, but it's a collaborative effort between all of us. So if there are items or sections of the website that we believe need changing, have something added, have something taken away, we all collaborate and make those suggestions. But Bob, can you just speak on the actual mechanical?
Right. In terms of content, as the council president said, it is a collaborative effort. All the elected officials, department heads will contribute to that, specifically the departments and their own pages. With regards to the site itself, our public information officer is responsible for all the, entering the content, editing, reconfiguring the site as it is now. So, right now it's one person.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Mr. LeBruno and Mr. Zor, I'll sort of piggyback both of your questions. So, Mr. LeBruno, I was made aware of a conversation that you had with our borough administrator about this particular situation, and it's unfortunate that you didn't mention that you had that conversation in your comments and the context of that conversation.
We don't
Okay.
do back and forth.
But what I'm saying is that
We don't
Mr.
do back and
LeBruno,
forth,
Mr.
Mr.
LeBruno,
LeBruno.
let me finish what I'm going to say. I think I was pretty attentive to every last bit that you were saying up there, and I think I have been for the history that you've been coming to these meetings.
Chief, can you please advise him that we don't do back and forth?
I will qualify my statement in saying you didn't offer all the details of that conversation with the borough administrator, but that you did in fact come in and speak to him and were given explanation about why we're introducing this ordinance tonight, what I would be happy to offer the explanation to the rest of the public that's sitting here now. As we said, as it relates to the Williams Center, in light of the sheer importance, complexity of this deal, yes, we are introducing an ordinance tonight in title only that will allow Mr. Olivo to go back to his financial institutions to show them that the borough is a willing partner in this project that will allow him to secure the financing that he needs to move this project along. I think I've been very clear, and my colleagues have been very clear, that we are up here to support, to help, to try to see that project specifically through to the end, because it has been such an important part of this borough for 30 years, maybe more at this point. To your point about process, the process in introducing the ordinance tonight, even despite the fact that we're missing these pieces, and from what I understand from our attorneys, from the borough administrator, from Mr. Olivo's attorneys, we're all still negotiating. We are trying to negotiate the best deal that we possibly can for the borough of Rutherford to see this project through, because it's important. It's important to our downtown, it's important to our future. The process, as Mr. Kakaleski explained, will allow us to see all those documents once we have them in hand. The beauty of introducing the ordinance and not technically voting to pass on it tonight is we will have the opportunity as a governing body to review the documents that you're talking about and to make an informed decision about whether or not we feel the borough is getting the best deal possible for this project. The process is in place. The process has always been in place. Now, granted, could that process be better? Sure, and maybe someday it will get better, but right now we're working within the parameters of the process that we have. And I'm sorry if you don't like that answer, but that's the answer that I have to offer this evening. Because I know sitting up here as a councilman for the past 6 years and to boot as an attorney, I'm not just gonna willy-nilly just make decisions based on nothing. I read the documents, I look through the ordinances, I understand the process that's behind everything. We are doing this to see this process move forward. And I will tell you, I'm fairly confident that if people up here aren't comfortable, they're not going to vote on it come November when we see it. So that's the explanation I have to offer to the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. I'm just going to wait for Missy to get back. I was looking for the break. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. Bonnie, I want, since Council President already addressed the website sidewalk question, I want to address the tax assessor. And so, Bob, you're a popular person this evening. So this, you are correct, this has been going on for a long time. But there are more entities other than just the borough that determine if, in fact, when we go forward with a reevaluation, which, as many of you know, is a very arduous and expensive process. So it's not one that you enter into lightly, and it's usually one that you plan for as it's coming up. And so, Bob, can you speak to conversations regarding the trigger number that the county requires and what you anticipate?
Thank you. First of all, Bonnie, I'd like to thank you for recognizing the hard work that our assessor's office is currently undergoing. Cheryl back there is a key component of that staff, and our assessor, Michelle Hennessy, are doing phenomenal work trying to catch up on some backlogs. But to address the reval question, yeah, it's a very sensitive and controversial issue when the time does come for that. In speaking with our assessor recently, I asked her, when she thought Rutherford may be called to go through that process. She said right now in her conversations with the county taxation board, Rutherford is not scheduled to be included in that for 2023 nor for 2024. They usually look at the ratio of value versus equalized valuation. There's the coefficient of deviation calculation that the county will look at in order to trigger that process. Right now, apparently, those variables haven't triggered the process. So when it does come, we'll definitely go through it.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you for your comments about the tax assessor's office also, because they are working incredibly hard. And you did point out some things that are, areas of concern, but this is one of those governance issues that transcend just the borough moving forward with reassessment, right? It is under the guise of the county, and so this is a conversation that Bob and I have had multiple times, and as you can tell, we're still getting that guidance from the county at this stage. Regarding, Cheryl, regarding your questions, I know the chief spoke to you, or I might have walked over, but just for the benefit of everybody in the gallery, that is, Jackson Avenue is a county road. And so that does present some inherent challenges about what we would want to put there. But I do know that the mayor has been in constant contact with the county about this and really pushing very hard for them to move this project forward. I couldn't agree with you more. It's very dark over there. It's hard just to drive a car at night, let alone if you're a pedestrian. So, Chief, thank you, though, for taking some notes on this to follow up with. And also, Chief will work with his department regarding Lincoln Avenue and to explore some possibilities. And so I trust that the chief will follow up, as he has assured us he will. I do want to, it's really just a bone of contention, to be honest. I try very hard to be open-minded and to listen very judiciously to everyone when they come up here to speak. But the accusation of lack of transparency is a little difficult, because if you are to ask of it, you have to give it as well, right? And so I heard the council president allude to it, but I know that you had prepared remarks for tonight, which you read from, because you had told us you were going to do that, but I wish you would have amended those prepared comments, Mr. LeBruno, to recognize the fact that you did in fact have a conversation, a fairly long one, with the borough administrator before tonight's meeting. And so I'm just going to say, in the spirit of the same thing that you're asking for people up here, which I think we try really hard to do. I certainly can speak for myself, I do. I'm just going to encourage that, anybody who's seeking to have that opportunity to sit here to remember that just having prepared statements and using statements like lack of transparency to get people fired up, be honest at least with everybody who was sitting in here about the conversation that you had, because I do think we were pretty forthcoming. And I want to actually thank Bob, because I think that we've had lots of residents come in with questions about stuff that's happening in town. And Bob will say to us, I just try to be honest with people and tell them the truth about where we are, and most importantly, the why, because I think the why is what gets people nervous. They're always afraid there's some conspiracy or somebody's not telling. And the truth is sometimes it's just process. And so thank you, Bob, for taking the time with every resident who comes in, regardless of what their question is, to help them understand what we're doing up here or what we're trying to do. So thank you, Mayor, for the time to respond.
Bob, is there anything you want to add, or are you good?
In regards to the Jackson Avenue light, I had spoken with the borough engineer a week or two ago, and he advised me he'd reached out to the county, and he was told at that point they were finalizing the bid documents, and hopefully we would be out to bid this month for the traffic light.
Thank you. Anybody, Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Repetti, just to piggyback on what Councilwoman McGowan had touched on, there is a currently larger project to further secure the intersections around our schools using a thermoplastic paint, which essentially will create rumble strips, right, to alert drivers to stop signs and more treacherous intersections. So if you would like to have a look at it in application, Lyndhurst has used it more recently, put together, yeah, exactly. So it worked quite well. It doesn't damage our snow plows, which speed bumps are problematic for. So there is a much larger effort in play there. If there are intersections that we are not quite aware of, please feel free to email me, and I'll make sure those get on the list for the study, and we'll take a look. But I also saw Chief Russo come over and give you his card. He's the man to have the finite details.
Councilman, you good? So the only thing I would add, Cheryl, is that the county, ourselves, and East Rutherford are entering into the agreement to create the rails to trails, which inevitably would have to force a traffic light to be there no matter what, and a more illuminating crossing area. So yeah, I will keep you posted on whatever's going on. Mr. LeBruno, civility is a nice thing, especially when you're running for office, because should you win, you'll have to work with these people. So negativity is probably not the best way to go. We're all just trying to work together. The gentleman behind you comes here respectfully, and that's how it should be during an election season. So please, if you're going to use this as a platform for an election, it's not helpful for anybody. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on now. We have nothing enclosed. Council President?
Thank you, Mayor. First, we have the approval of the regular meeting minutes of September 26th, 2022. Councilman Malahy was absent. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman McGowan. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan? Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have resolution number 198. This is authorizing the procedures and conditions regarding the public sale of a new plenary retail consumption liquor license. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman McGowan. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have the consent agenda. All items authorized to be consent by the council will be enacted by one motion. These items are routine in nature. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guzman. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldtag?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to committee reports. Councilman McGowan? Councilman McGowan, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, I have nothing under finance, but I would like to remind everybody that the KIP Center Casino Night is coming up this week, and if you are able to support them, please, by all means. They are an incredible organization. They do so much for this community, not just for the senior population, but really as a hub for really meaningful, purposeful services that are needed for members of our community beyond the senior population. So I want to congratulate Kathy and her entire team over at the KIP Center for their great work. As always, although I owe them an apology, the Ambulance Corps, in my remarks during Rutherford Day, I did not acknowledge our Ambulance Corps, and so I want to be on the public record for that ridiculous oversight, and how fortunate we are for everybody in this room and anybody listening. We are one of the few municipalities in the state of New Jersey where every single member of the Rutherford Ambulance Corps is an EMT. It is the gold standard. Communities want to be like us. We have an incredible brigade of young men and women who have committed themselves to serving our population and our surrounding communities, and we are so ridiculously fortunate to have all of them. And I will give an update regarding the Municipal Alliance at the next meeting, but I do want to point out the importance of mental health. Yesterday was World Mental Health Awareness Day. Bergen County, particularly Rutherford, is one of the many communities in Bergen and across the state of New Jersey that is proud to be stigma-free. Our stigma-free committee has done virtual trainings and brought mental health experts to our community via these trainings and shared information to help members of our community. But most importantly, all the training in the world doesn't take the place of just knowing your neighbors and people in your lives. Take a moment. If you see somebody struggling, just ask them how they're doing. Don't be afraid to refer for services. Bob is here, Missy is certainly in the clerk's office. We have incredible social services through Genevieve. I just really want to encourage and remind people, no matter how bad the day is, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Maybe it'll be a cloudy day, but the sun will come up. And we have people here who are ready, able, and willing to support you or somebody you love in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If you want to do a motion to censure yourself for leaving out the Ambulance Corps. We'll move on to police, Councilwoman.
Thank you. There's nothing on the agenda this evening except to thank our men and women of the police department, and also to acknowledge the coffee with the cop. Right, I believe Chief and the entire department participated in that on October 5th. And it was awesome to see members of Rutherford just stopping in, grabbing a cup of coffee, and getting to meet the men and women who keep them safe and to build a stronger community. So thank you, Chief, for your great work. And the nurses. I'm batting zero. Apparently, I keep leaving somebody out. Mea culpa, and thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Guzman.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First up, I have a motion to accept the resignation of DPW employee Matthew Bato, effective October 21st, 2022. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Guzman. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Council President. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldtag?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes. Thank you. I have nothing new to report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Move on to fire. Councilman Coakley.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of reminders. First, the Rutherford Fire Department's annual memorial service will be held this Thursday, October 13th at 7 p.m. The location is the Firefighters Memorial Park at the intersection of Mortimer and West Pierpont, right off of Park Avenue. It is a wonderful ceremony if the community can come out and show the men and women of our department how much we appreciate them and those that we've lost in the line of duty. In closing, the other reminder is the Battle of the Bands. Our community's young people will be performing on October 23rd at the Williams Center. So far, we have 5 bands signed up, and if you were down at Rutherford Day to see some of our more talented youngins, you know it'll be a great show. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Roberson's not here. Second is,
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report.
looking at
Nothing to report on behalf of Councilwoman Roberson.
thank you. Oh, you're up again.
Nothing to report under my liaison assignments either. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Going to move on. I have a few appointments to make. First, Lori Gentile to permanent appointment to Clerk 2 in accordance with the rules and regulations of the State of New Jersey Civil Service Commission effective October 12, 2022. I'd ask for a motion.
Motion?
Motion by Councilwoman. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
My second appointment is Sandy Maslak to the Exceptional Individuals Teacher. I'm asked for council consent.
Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guzman. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
My final appointment is Jeff Statiel to Acting Instructor. I'd ask for council consent.
Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinances on first read. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. First up, we have the ordinance in relation to the financial agreement related to the Williams Center redevelopment. I'd like to ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance of the Borough of Rutherford, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, approving the application of and execution of financial agreement with Native Development Urban Renewal LLC in connection with the redevelopment of 15 Sylvan Street and 5 Ettrick Terrace.
I'd like to make a motion that the ordinance be passed on first reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
You're up again.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have an ordinance related to off-street parking. I'd like to ask Missy to read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance to amend and revise Chapter 131 zoning of the Borough Code of the Borough of Rutherford.
I'd like to make a motion that the ordinance be passed on first reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman McGowan. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan? Councilman Guzman.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance is on second read. Councilman Coakley?
Thank you, sir. We are bringing around the second reading for an ordinance amending the salary of our fire prevention specialists, which essentially brings them in line with other municipalities around us. Missy, will you please read the ordinance by title only?
An ordinance to amend and supplement an ordinance entitled an ordinance regulating the employment, tenure, and discharge of certain officers and employees of the Borough of Rutherford under the provisions of the Civil Service Act of New Jersey, number 3615-22, adopted on June 27, 2022.
Thank you, Missy. I make a motion to move the ordinance be passed on second reading and advertised according to law. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Coakley. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman McGowan. I'll now open it up for the public, if anybody wants to speak on this subject matter and this subject matter only. Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open it up for council comments. Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilwoman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Councilman Coakley and our Borough Administrator for going through all this and helping the fire department out. Thank you very much. Councilman Leahy's not here, Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we're talking about the amending vehicle parking regulations on Chestnut and Ames Avenue. Missy, can you please read the ordinance by title only?
In order to amend and revise Chapter 126, Vehicles and Traffic of the Borough Code of the Borough of Rutherford.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to move that the ordinance be passed on second reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Councilman McGowan. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guzman. I'm now going to open this up for public comment on this subject and this subject matter only. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none. Anybody from the council wishing to speak? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
I'll now accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Council President. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Second by